I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina.
Glad to have you, amazing viewer. This video might be triggering, and yeah, I always say if you're not ready to get uncomfortable, then we'll never find the comfort that you're looking for. We're here for advocacy, and this is a video that I came across on my For You page on TikTok, and likely I happened to find all the needed updates up to where the case is right now. I'll let you listen to the video, but I just want to send my sincere condolences to the family, and may her soul rest in peace. But yeah, I'll let you listen to the entire story. Let's watch and learn.
This pastor, John Paul Miller, led a whole church service on a Sunday before letting his congregation know that his beautiful wife, Mica, was no longer with them. She had died the day before. He had just found out, and he literally carried on with the whole service before sharing this message.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone, he'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share.
Come on, let's pray.
Now, there is a whole lot more going on to this story, and I have been digging into it for the last couple days. I'm going to share everything I've found out in the next few videos, so make sure you hit follow. Here is everything you need to know about the death of Mica Miller and her pastor husband, John Michael Miller. I'm going to start this off by saying there is a ton going on in this story. Some of it is speculation, some of it is fact. I will just give you everything, and you can make your own decision. I will be updating on this as anything comes out, so make sure you hit follow. This is Mica Miller. She was 30 years old and married to this man. This is John Paul Miller. He was the pastor at Solid Rock at Market Common Church, which was in Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Mica was sadly found about an hour from her family home in Lumber River State Park last weekend on Saturday, April 27th, with a gunshot wound to her head. Mica's husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, ended up going to church the very next day, performing his whole sermon, and then ended up revealing to his whole congregation what had happened to his wife. And he revealed during this time some very personal information, including that he believed, despite investigations still ongoing, that his wife had taken her own life, and also talking about her mental health struggles. Now, because of him making this very public announcement, it has caused a huge uproar in his church, the community, and also with Michael's family. They have now had to come forward sharing what they believe is their side of the story. This post came from Mica's sister, Sierra. There was a lot of talk already going on, so I want to set the record straight. Our sister Mica passed away yesterday. Please do not listen to false stories being shared about her. Mica was a God-fearing, joyful, loving woman who did not deserve the abuse she endured. If you hear anything about this from anyone other than her family, please question it. Reach out to her siblings or parents. Keep our family in your prayers, and if you have any information that needs to be shared, please contact one of us. Please respect us in this time and honor her memory with joy that she is no longer suffering. Mica's father also went on a Facebook group and made this post saying, "My daughter Mica was found Saturday in Lumberton, North Carolina with a fatal gunshot wound. A no contact order and a divorce was filed just days before this tragedy. We are devastated. Prayers appreciated." It turns out Mica had actually filed for divorce this past October, but she did withdraw the request in February. Just a few days after that, it looks like the pastor filed for what is called a support and maintenance, which basically is him seeking financial support. And it looks like Mica had also filed for that. And as you saw from her father's post, it looks like she had refiled for divorce and also filed for a restraining order from her soon-to-be ex-husband. And when you look this up in the court system online, they were granted a temporary date in court to deal with this on June 5th, and they were granted this just the day before Mica's death. Now, a friend of Mica's has come forward and shared that when Mica left John Paul, she ended up hiding out at her friend's home because she was actually scared of him and what he was going to do. The friend claims that Mica told her she was being abused in the relationship and that she had found out that certain funds in the church were being used inappropriately. It's also being said that Pastor John Paul was having an affair with this woman. Now, they are saying that this is his mistress, that he's been seen with her numerous times and seen with her since Mica's passing. They're saying that they have possibly been dating for years. Her husband actually passed away. He was a paraplegic living in a wheelchair for almost 20 years, and he actually drowned in a community pool. People are saying it was suspicious. This is allegedly a statement that was passed into some news outlets from a source who claims this is from the mistress. This statement basically claims that the reason they were seen together was because his wife has passed away, he had no one to eat with, so she agreed to go out and have lunch with him. She also goes on to talk about Mica and the situation and Mica's mental health. She claims that allegedly Mica contacted the police before going to this park, saying she had a gun and she was going to hurt herself. A friend of Mica's also made a post sharing some information as well, saying that she's not going to pretend she knows what went on Saturday, but she does claim to know a lot. Her friend acknowledged that she had mental health issues, and unfortunately, she claims that these health issues were actually being used against her and almost weaponized. She says that Mica was a different person right now. She said that she was trying to break the chains of her marriage, and she was actually making plans for the future. This friend claims that Mica was actually being isolated in her marriage and that she was even being isolated from her friends. She says that she was a part of Mica's church for years, and when she and her family tried to leave the church, they were basically being stalked and attacked because of it. She says Mica wasn't just leaving her husband, she had to leave the church. She said that lots of things had been going on, that she was getting her tires slashed. She says that there were trackers found on her phone. She claims that Mica was going from couch to couch at her friends' homes to try and hide from her husband so that he wouldn't know where she was. She also says that Mica was hospitalized by her husband when it was completely unnecessary. She says that what Mica didn't know was that a large portion of the church completely understood and had actually been waiting for Mica to leave. She also stated that Mica was planning for the future. She had an appointment with her lawyer, that she also had an appointment to get her hair cut. She says she was a woman that was living life. Mica had actually made a video and posted it on her Facebook account asking people to share this with anyone struggling with leaving a dangerous situation because they think God will be mad at them. She goes in to talk about abuse and relates it to her own situation. One of the last posts she made on her Facebook account was this one, saying, "When terrible, terrible, terrible things happen to you, y'all know what I'm talking about. RPF, resting peace face." Pastor John Paul Miller actually just did an interview with Christian Post. In the interview, he talks about the fact that he and Mica had actually met and got together in an adulterous relationship. He says that they were both married and they started cheating on their spouses. They ended up getting together, leaving their spouses, and they were married in 2017. He claims that shortly after they were married, that she had some sort of surgery. He doesn't give details as to what that is, but he says that at the time, she ended up being diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, and dependent personality disorder. He says Mica was supposed to be taking lithium for her struggles and that she usually refused to take it and didn't like it. He says that he stood by her through all of this, taking her to the hospital anytime she was having issues. He also claims that he took her to probate court a few weeks ago to get her hospitalized, but that the court said that she wasn't a danger to anyone and they wouldn't allow it to be forced on her. He goes on to say that nobody believed him, that her family wouldn't listen, that he was just being made to look bad for all of this, and claims that he told everyone numerous times that she needed to be hospitalized and something bad was going to happen. So that is basically all we know right now. A lot of it, like I said, is assumptions and speculation. Some of it is fact. The case is still under investigation, and I will definitely be updating as soon as anything else comes out, so make sure you hit follow. The death of Mica Miller has a lot of mystery surrounding it right now. In this video that she had posted to her Facebook account, it does sound like she's insinuating that her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, abused her. Take a listen.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse. And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately, just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ. Before anybody else's bride, male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs, or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault. So I want to remind you, like a bunch of people have been reminding me lately, that I'm God's bride first. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? What do you think he thinks about that? So, encouragement in all this is, you are the bride of Christ first before anybody else's. And he's got you. And he sees you. And he loves you.
This pastor's wife, Mica Miller, was found deceased in the woods last Saturday from an apparent gunshot wound to the head. He told his whole congregation that she had done it to herself. Her family does not believe this is true. Her sister has made a Facebook account. This is what she had to say.
I'm sure you guys are aware that we have not been getting sleep. We have not had time to grieve because we've been seeking justice. And my mom found out about Mica passing away. That's the first thing I said to her. She said, I'm getting on a plane. I'm trying to get money and fly out there to see you. I don't know if I'm driving, if I'm flying, but I'm coming. And I said, Mom, don't come here if you're ready to grieve, because we're not there yet. We're still in the stage of fighting. We are still fighting for Mica. We are still fighting for answers. And we are still fighting to make sure that what she started is finished.
Mica Miller, the wife of the pastor from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, was posting about terrible things happening to her just days before she was found dead. She had also posted a video trying vaguely to explain what had been going on in her life without coming out and telling everyone, but this is what she had to say.
Hey everybody, I just want to let you know that I'm alive and well, and life's been kind of crazy the couple past weeks, months, years, but I've kind of had to keep my circle really small for the past couple weeks, just because I'm going through a lot and it's hard, and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God has put in my life to deal with, and I don't want to bring a lot of people into it. I'm so thankful to God for a strong family and the friends that God has put in my life to be there for me at this time. I just wanted to share that my heart and my prayer is that the church would stay strong, that y'all would stick together, because the church is God's people. It's not a man, it's not a person, it's not me, it's God's people. Keep worshiping. Like I can't wait to worship again with everybody, but for now I'm just worshiping with me and Jesus. I think when your world is shook up, you need to take a pause. And I can only pray that more people will take a pause and get I'm trying to get my priorities straight right now. And that's making sure that my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future and peace. Because you can't put a price on peace. Thank you for all your prayers and support. Know that I have to keep my circle really, really small right now. I'm used to having a really big circle, so it's hard because I want to reach out to everybody and tell you how much I love you and I miss you. But this is the best way that I know how. So I love you all. I miss you. Thank you for your love and support over the last couple years. And some of you, up to 18 years walking with me as my friends. And for right now, I've just had to put everything on pause to get myself right. And I think God's happy with that. So keep praying for me. Thank you. And I love you. I'll be praying for you. God bless you. Bye.
We have some pretty big updates in the case of Mica Miller and her pastor husband, JP or John Paul Miller. We have got documentation now, an affidavit that was filed by Mica's brother and sister. Her sister Sierra is trying to get power of attorney back from this man. The cause of death for Mica has also been released, and it looks like a statement from the church about what is happening with John Paul Miller right now has also been released. Let's first take a look at a timeline of how the events have played out so far. So it looks like October 8th or 9th, Mica Miller filed for divorce from John Paul Miller. In February, however, on February 13th, the October divorce was then dismissed. Just days later, on February 22nd and 23rd, John Paul Miller files for separation from Mica, but then on March 12th, that is also dismissed. A month later, on April 15th or 16th, Mica then files for separation, and just days later, they get a date for that hearing, which was going to be June 5th. And just 4 days later, on April 27th, is when Mica was found deceased. The very next day, John Paul Miller goes to church, holds his whole sermon, and at the end, almost as a side note, adds that his wife was deceased and found the day before and claims that it was self-induced. So Pastor John Paul Miller's church, the Solid Rock Church in Market Common, the website was taken down the other day. When you go there now, it basically tells you the link doesn't work. And the overseer of the church had sent out a notice to all its members on Sunday saying that Pastor John Paul Miller was released from all ministerial functions. The notice stated that he is being released for a time of healing, counsel, and guidance pursuant to our governing instrument. Some police reports have also come forward. One of those police reports that Mica filed stated that she reported to police that there was a razor blade placed in her tire. She says that it was the second time that week that this has happened. She started to drive away, heard a pop, pulled over, and saw metal protruding from the tire. When the police officer arrived, he located the item and said it was actually a tire deflation device. The report stated that Mica said strange things had been happening to her recently. She believed people were following her and that she was being watched. She did, of course, name the person she thought was behind this, but the name was redacted for privacy, but everyone is assuming that it was her husband at the time, John Paul Miller. Now, police officers did say that they couldn't move forward with an arrest or do anything with this because there wasn't enough evidence as to who had done this to her. After this incident, Mica then had to contact the police again. She said that when she left the scene after the officer had helped her fix the tire, she went to get gas and then went to the East Coast Honda dealership. When she went to the gas station and started to pump gas, the suspect pulled up and tried to talk to her. She told the person she didn't want to speak. She got her phone out to record them and the person sped off. She said once she got to Honda, however, the person arrived again and that's when she contacted police. The officer arrived at the Honda dealership, and while he was standing there talking to Mica, she received a phone call from a blocked caller ID. When she answered it, it ended up being the suspect. The officer says he took the phone, spoke to the suspect, advised them that the victim did not want any further contact, says that the suspect acknowledged this and hung up the phone. The police officer also noted that Mica told him she was afraid for her life at this time. Once the officer left, Mica then later called him to say mechanics at the Honda dealership found a tracking device on her car. About an hour later, the officer says Mica contacted him from the magistrate's office where she was there to get a restraining order against her husband. The officer met her at this location to get the tracking device, and while they were standing outside talking, a vehicle drove by and Mica noticed it was the suspect's vehicle. They both looked at the vehicle and it sped off. Mica's cause of death was also released today. Now, this is still under investigation, but the medical examiner made the following statement. He said, based on the nature of the wound, that it is consistent with a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and it was not in the back of the head as it had previously been speculated. Mica's sister Sierra and her brother Nathaniel have filed paperwork and the affidavit has now been released. They are looking to take over the estate from Mica and get power of attorney away from her husband. I'm going to post another video explaining in detail those affidavits because there is a lot of information on what Mica had told her family about what was going on with her husband at the time. There is a lot going on in this situation. I will definitely be updating, so make sure you hit follow and go check out my next video to see what her sister and brother had to say. The case of Mica Miller and her pastor husband, John Paul Miller, just keeps getting worse. We now have copies of the affidavits that her sister Sierra and her brother Nathaniel filed. They have now filed applications for her sister Sierra to become the special administrator of her estate. This would mean that Sierra would represent Mica in probate court against Pastor John Paul Miller. There was a lot revealed in these affidavits. I'm going to go through it with you. I will share you what was written in both of their affidavits, and they claim that this information was told to them by Mica. So the first thing to note was in Sierra's application, she says that she was extremely close with her sister, that they talked all the time on the phone and they texted daily. She said that Mica confided in her about lots of what was going on with her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. Now, she claims Mica told her people had been following her, that they had been tracking her. As you know, there were police reports filed saying that her tires were slashed and that she was being followed and possibly watched. Sierra shared that Mica had talked about the violence and abuse she was suffering at the hands of her husband, that she told family members this, as well as some of the church congregation. Mica allegedly told her family members that her husband was hiring people to follow and stalk her. She also claimed to have known that he was transferring assets into different names at this time. She claims that he changed the name of his vehicle to someone else, that he also had transferred the deed of his home into the church's name, and that he'd given or transferred the interest in the Crocodile Rocks bar to his son. Sierra claims that just this past February, while Mica was in a mental health hospital, that JP cleaned out all of her personal belongings and took them to someone's apartment and dropped them off. She says her sister did not know about this until she was released from the hospital and claimed that he said he did this to keep an eye on her. Once she found this out is when she hired an attorney to get a divorce, and this is also when she joined a new church. Sierra also stated that at this time, when Mica went into the hospital, she had been trying to collect information on her husband to give to her attorney to support her claims. She said that she had information on his character, on the abuse, on his paramours, it was worded, which of course are lovers or having affairs. Also his associates that he was paying off or blackmailing. She claims that once she got out of the hospital, that everything was wiped out from her phone, her laptop, her purse, and her belongings. Everything was gone and was not recovered. Mica also claims that at this time she couldn't get into her iCloud. She also did not have the passwords or the ability to get back into her Facebook account and her email. It's also being said that at this time, JP was actually sending or posting things pretending he was her at this time. Mica had also just done a mission in Kenya and claimed that she absolutely loved it. She actually planned on going back very soon, and her sister says she had already shipped some of her personal belongings there already. Mica told her family members that she feared for her life from her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller. She was quoted also as saying, "If I end up with a bullet in my head, it was not by me, it was JP." Mica had a texting group going with her family at this time, and on April 25th, she texted her family saying that she had finally served JP Miller with the divorce papers. 2 days later, her body was found. In Mica's brother's affidavit, he claims that Mica had told him that there were documents now in place allowing her brother to make decisions on her well-being. Those documents were not able to be located, and her brother claims the only thing that was found was paperwork showing that Pastor John Paul Miller, her husband at the time, had power of attorney. Her brother also commented on the police reports that she had been filing lately. He also said that there were emails from her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller, apologizing for slashing the tires and damaging her car. In one email in particular, he confides that he was angry with her because he felt she put her family before him. This is a quote from that email. "When someone hurts me, I try to hurt them back rather than forgive. And instead of me forgiving you, I just attack and try to cause pain." Mica's family is definitely doing everything they can to get some answers in this situation. I will definitely be updating on this case, so make sure to hit follow. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office released a media statement today, officially announcing that Mica Miller did in fact take her own life. They announced that a death investigation that has tugged on the hearts of people across the nation has been ruled. The decision was based on surveillance footage, interviews, physical evidence, and the examination of the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office. On Saturday, April 27th at approximately 2:54 p.m., Mica contacted 911 asking the operator if she was able to find Mica's location. Mica wanted to make sure that her family was able to find her body. The operator tried to keep Mica on the phone, but she hung up. The police then contacted the park security, and they ended up doing a search for Mica. The police ended up using a drone, searching the park. They led the investigation, and they ended up finding Mica's vehicle. When they searched Mica's vehicle, they ended up finding a gun case and ammunition. They also found a receipt for a pawn shop, and surveillance video from that pawn shop shows Mica purchasing the weapon. Officers said they were also approached by someone at the park who had been fishing. They said they had found a bag and there was identification in the bag saying it was Mica's. They also told the officers that they had heard crying and a gunshot at one point. While officers continued to search the park, an individual made a 911 call saying they had found a body in the water. The officers arrived and the body was located and identified as Mica Miller. The gun matching the receipt and the gun box in Mica's vehicle was also found with her, as was her cell phone and some other personal belongings. Police also stated that during their investigation, they did find out that Mica and Pastor John Paul Miller were in the middle of a legal battle, and they ended up contacting Miller, who was with a female who he is allegedly romantically involved with. Both individuals were found to have not been in the area of North Carolina on the night or the day of Mica's death. The sheriff, the investigators, and the medical examiner all met with Mica's family yesterday to give them this news. The police were able to establish a timeline before Mica's death. They said at 11 a.m. she was seen on camera heading home to her house. At 11:38, she left her residence. At 12:12 p.m., she is seen on store surveillance at the pawn shop. And at 12:13, she's seen purchasing the weapon. At 12:34, she is observed leaving the pawn shop after getting the weapon and the ammunition. And at 1:06, her Honda is observed traveling down the highway, heading towards South Carolina. At 1:27, she's seen on camera stopping at a grocery and grill. And at 1:35, she's seen leaving. At 2:54 p.m. is when she made the 911 call. The police did acknowledge all the rumors and conspiracy theories that have been going around about this situation, but they said in the end, this was just an absolute tragic situation, and they did express their sincere condolences to Mica's family.